about $800 damage to the door, the walls, both sides. Man. My fault, not theirs.
Everybody's in?
Hello.
Hi, Mike, it's Terry.
Hi.
Hi, we're just about ready to start.
Okay.
Okay, since we've got Mike, we'll call the meeting to order. It's at 4:30, August 22nd, for Executive Legislative Committee. First item would be roll call.
Mike Marin,
Here.
John Alexander,
Present.
Rick Knight,
Here.
Robert Fox,
Present.
Bruce Stark,
Here.
Larry Davis,
Here.
John Dreer,
Here.
Gary Weiner.
Here.
8 present.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you, everyone, for coming this afternoon. Item 2 on our agenda is the adoption or amendment of the agenda. I have no changes to make in the agenda and would move for its adoption as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Davis has raised his hand and will second that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion,
Aye.
and opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have an agenda. Item 3 is the approval or amendment of minutes. I trust you've all had an opportunity to look at the minutes and read them. I believe they're correct. Would ask for a motion of approval of the minutes for July 25th. Mr. Stark has made the motion for approval. Mr. Fox has seconded that motion. Any other discussion?
Just a situation where I will try and speak more distinctly, since I was noted as being unintelligible as far as whatever remark I
Get on
made.
TV,
What's that?
getting on,
Oh, being on TV. I don't know what it was about.
yeah,
May I comment on that?
You may.
It's because there were 2 people speaking at the same
Oh,
time.
okay.
And I couldn't decipher one over the other at that.
I'll try and speak loudly in case somebody else is talking.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor then of approving the minutes for July 25th, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The minutes have been approved for July 25th. Audience comments is item number 4. Do we have audience comments today, please?
Yes, I have some unanswered questions I've asked Mr.
Let me
Donahue.
stand up, please.
Okay, yeah, why don't you,
I have some unanswered questions I asked Bill Donahue to answer. He's not here right now, is he?
He's not. He is finishing up some post negotiating meetings. I'm sure they're in a kind of a debriefing session right now. He may
Okay.
be here later if you want to.
If I could go later and ask him my questions specifically to the GIS contract, I could do that in his presence,
Okay.
if that's okay.
It'll be fine.
Also like to encourage this group to still talk about our wind farm ordinance and making changes to that it's not going to continue to grow and hurt other community members and families in our county.
Other comments? Would you tell us who you are, please?
Jeremy Lomax. I just am trying to figure out what avenue I need to go for the tax deal. You know, my taxes went up this year, live in the middle of a wind farm, and I can't even get an appraiser to even do a comparable. I don't know what to do.
Are you in Pilot Township?
Yes.
Sure. Thank you.
And for the members that weren't there, I bought my house not knowing they added a turbine behind it after I bought it. Not knowing that it was gonna be that close to my house. And, I mean, basically it's in my backyard.
I can tell you that in Pilot Township, a multiplier was applied this year. It was at about 95.7% a year ago. This year it went to 1% even, so everything throughout the county. That would account for part of the tax increase, but I don't have an answer for the rest of it, Jeremy.
Yeah, because we have neighbors that have went up $1,500 this year. We have 2 of those. And with my taxes, there's a brand new home on the other side of Powlett Township that's paying $1,800 a year less than I am, and my home was built in 1978. And it's not 100% comparable, because it's a sided home and mine's a brick home. But, you know, still, I'm paying $5,000 a year in Pilot Township.
Have you talked to the supervisor of assessments and the assessor in Pilot Township?
Yes,
Okay, and you've not had any satisfaction?
and either there's I'm also here in part for a couple of my neighbors. I have another neighbor that she has filed 3 letters, letters of,
Appeal?
there you go. They're charging her for 3 barns that have been burnt down for 4 years. I mean, it's been, before I even lived there, I just remember the fire because it almost burnt the 4th barn down when it went. And they came out and they told them that the barns were still there. They're gone. I mean, there's a concrete pad still, but they're gone.
Who's they?
That's Amber Miles
No, I'd say, who was they that
and
told them?
Duncan.
Ann told them that?
And they keep filing it, and I mean, they actually just tore a barn down and put a new one up, but what they were chicken coops on Alice. I don't know if you guys know where Alice Miles lives out
Yeah,
there.
right.
Well, all them big chicken coops, the
Mhm.
3 of them, they're gone. They've been gone, and they're still paying taxes on it.
And she's filed an appeal, Jeremy?
Yes, she's filed 2, she said. She
And-
couldn't make it here in time, and it's one of those things, you know.
But has there been a hearing? Has she been called into a hearing?
You know, I don't know, but I
That would
just
be
told
the
her I would bring it up
process.
for her, because she asked me if I got anywhere, and I told her I'd bring it up. I don't know their details as much as I know my own, but,
Yeah, I would encourage her to contact the supervisor's office and see when the board of review will meet.
okay.
There should be at least an answer for her appeal.
Absolutely.
But I think that's already happened, because she told me that Mike Long told her that Ann Duncan has revisited the property and it's final. That is the evaluation and the reassessment. That's what, she did tell me that, so I would say it probably went that far, but like I said, I don't know 100%, so.
Well, I guess I would suggest that she goes, I'm sorry, we're getting a little bit too far into this, but I'd suggest you talk with Matt and schedule an appointment, talk to him, just to try and get to the bottom of it, as to why that was done.
Because when I talked to Matt about my deal, he told me that wind farms don't affect property value. And I was actually already in process with this before the turbine even went up. You know, because it's one property, I have one property that's roughly $1,800 a year, and then I have that property, and it's $3,000 a year difference between the 2 properties in the same township. That's huge. So that's why I was trying to figure it out.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Other comments? Kim?
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you?
Good.
I did make a copy for all of you if you want to go ahead and have one of those. I'm here to bring up, again, revisiting the county's ordinance. At the last meeting, the regular board meeting, we did submit through the county clerk's office and asked that a copy of the Iroquois County which is our county to the north where we live. They are revisiting their ordinance, and the revisions that they're looking at are pretty darn good. And so I was wondering, we did ask that the county clerk distribute that to all of the county board members, and we did highlight the copy submitted. We highlighted what we thought were good recommendations. I think there's other important language that needs to be in the county's wind ordinance, and they are as follows. That community notification to all that would be in the project and those that are a mile outside the project. This would include participating and non-participating, and there's a typo, and I apologize for that, it should be individuals. This would be done by registered mail. That no less than 3 public meetings or hearings. This would include adequate time in between meetings, 30 days apart. Also included would be up to 1 hour per person affected by the project to present or bring evidence and testimony to the meeting. That setbacks are from property lines, not from foundations of a primary structure. There could be waivers that could be signed for any affected parties. There should be setbacks for transmission poles and lines from property lines. There should be setbacks for substations from property lines, and there should be stricter noise limits than IEPA. IEPA limits are antiquated and do not reflect what is really happening in such projects. Infrasound needs to be measured, shadow flicker needs to be addressed, property value guarantee language, and take out decommissioning completely. No county involvement, landowner assumes all responsibility for the removal. And then the last one that I had on there, which I believe I've spoken to county board members about before, and I believe I brought up with some individuals on the structural safety committee, that any insurance policy should have the county named as the additional insured and not the LLC. And I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the insurance stuff that I've seen in regard to our wind farm, what they've presented you with was the county is not named as the additional insured. So, but these are just a few topics for discussion, and I would hope that we could come together and really talk about the wind ordinance and bring forth meaningful change. Sincerely and respectfully, Kim Cameron. I do have another copy of that Iroquois ordinance if anyone would like to have it today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Anyone else? Mr. Hartnett, did you want to address
Yes.
Mr. Donahue now?
I emailed on August the 20th, a list of questions to Mr. Donahue. These are all regarding our GIS contract, which we recently entered in with Bruce Harrison Associates. I still have a lot of doubts in whether or not this was done properly. I'm going to repeat these questions I had earlier. Does the GIS mapping service that we have here fall within the state of Illinois definition of professional services? In other words, I have serious doubts that GIS mapping service, actually I know that they are not eligible for QBS selection. Qualified base selection is for firms that are licensed and recognized by the state of Illinois as having a professional license. And it covers Illinois professional design firms, which are basically a firm that's doing business as a certain name. Individuals such as professional engineers, licensed architects, and professional land surveyors. I looked at Bruce Harrison Associates. They are not an Illinois professional design firm, and Bruce Harris is not licensed in any of those professions. I want to know if GIS mapping is exempt from competitive bidding or selection. I think the proper thing to do would have been to send out a request for proposals for the new contract that before it was let out, that would invite other people to participate and be have a chance at seeing what else is out there to provide and compete for the work to do mapping for our county. I want to know if our GIS mapping service company was exempt for any reason, how they are exempt from our county procurement guidelines. I want to see what our dollar amount limit is before we can sign a contract with any provider. During the county board meeting and before the finance committee meeting to discuss the contract with Bruce Harrison Associates' proposal, I emailed the entire county board and I asked these questions. I wrote, what was the previous contract amount that we had with Bruce Harrison Associates? And I wanted to compare that old contract amount to the new proposed outline and scope of work. And I wanted to see if those things were aligned with each other. Okay? And my question really comes down to my bottom line here. Was it good fiscal judgment? Was it a financially sound decision for our county to enter in a contract with Bruce Harrison Associates without, in my perception here, without looking for another service provider who could have done this work for maybe a lot less? I want to be clear with you, I am not in the GIS mapping providing service. This is not for me. This is on behalf of the county that I want to see some good fiscal decision-making. And I'd like to have these questions answered to see if it was a legal maneuver for our county to enter in with this contract.
Thank you, Mr. Hartke. Anything else? Okay, moving on then. Item 5 on our agenda are budgets for the North Fork Special Service District. You have those budgets in your packet. They are a copy or a complete duplication of last year's budgets. And Mr. Kentner called and asked if it was necessary that he came tonight, or come tonight. I told him it wasn't, that we'd go ahead and look at these. I would move that A, B, and C be combined for the North Fork Special Service District, and these budgets be adopted as presented.
Second.
Mr. Fox has seconded. Okay, discussion concerning the Special Service District budgets. I might just, as a little bit of history, I think most everybody knows, these budgets are in effect only for the area that the Special Service District affects. If people in Georgetown or people in Danville don't pay any taxes in these. These are only for the watershed area in the north end of the county, and those taxpayers are the only ones that are involved in this. Their budget is a deficit budget. They have budgeted money that they expect to use for contracts. However, I can tell you last year, number one, they budgeted a deficit of $38,000, and they actually increased their fund balance by 29. That means they did not spend what they budgeted, but they have taken the position that they intend to budget everything in the event they need it. That prevents them or will not require them to come back for a budget amendment, and that's where they've done business for several years. So, in number two, the budget deficit last year was $14,500, and they actually ended up increasing their fund balance by $10,000. In number three, the deficit was $2,800, and they actually increased their fund balance by $2,000. So there are healthy fund balances in all of the three, and they are not asking for any more revenue. They're asking for the same revenue, and I would expect that they will continue to operate in the same way, where if it's needed, they'll be spent, and if it's not, it won't be able to be returned into the balance. So, questions of the committee? John?
You didn't talk to Rick about where they are this year as far as.
I didn't, as far as their program of work. He indicated that there were some things yet to do, and they were waiting for the crop to be harvested, but he didn't indicate there was anything that was gonna be of a magnificent, project of any kind.
And one other question, I guess, I didn't even think about it. Is their fiscal year the same as the county's, Gary, or is it different? Do you remember? I can't even remember.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it really wouldn't make any difference, but their fiscal year may lap over ours, so that may create some difficulties, because they're working on, November to November, December 1st to November 30th budget, and maybe their fiscal year is totally different than that, too.
The audited balances that I gave you were as of November 30th of 12, that they were in line with our fiscal year end, so I'm not sure. I can find that out for you.
No,
But I don't know.
I understand that they're rather conservative anyway, but they'd like to have those fund balances, but at the same time still do work up as they need to. And it's kind of like road work or whatever, just sometimes timing wise is different than what, the normal budget year would be. Same, thanks.
Okay, anything else, Rick?
They've got 3 service areas.
Correct.
Evidently, one's the largest. Do you know where that's at?
Yeah, the largest one would be north of Bismarck up toward Hoopston. That's the largest watershed. That's where the most work was done. There are a couple of tributary creeks that go into that, so the miles of riverbank or creek bank is substantially larger in number 1 than it is number 2 and number 3. Bismarck is one of them, and I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 offhand, but it basically is the community of Bismarck. And at the time, Bismarck was not incorporated, so the tax rate in the incorporated and unincorporated areas was different. Hoopston is in the district, it's an incorporated area, so the tax levy actually was about half for assessed dollar of assessed valuation. And I know there was a real problem with Bismarck because they weren't incorporated, and the village of Bismarck was actually paying the same levy rate, which was double what Hoopston was paying. So there's been quite a history with the thing, but, yes, the 1, 2, and 3 reflect basically the size of the geographical area that each one of them, and Rick,
You
I
know
don't
what
remember.
Waters was? That's in 2 or 3.
That's
or-
either in 2 or 3,
You don't
yeah,
know which.
I don't know which one. It's probably something we need to look at, because this has been done
15 years
oh,
ago.
more than that. Gene Beckler was county board chairman when it was done. It's probably 25 or 28 years ago that this has been ongoing. The history of it was the state of Illinois put money into it to do the original work with the understanding that the residents in the special service district would then establish a levy to maintain that work, and they would pay that levy, and I think DON, that Department of Natural Resources, is kind of the watchdog or the oversight. And frankly, it's been on long enough, I don't know, I'm sure there's nobody in DON that remember how this was set up, so.
I remember I signed some right of ways several years ago,
Yeah.
and up here in
Yeah.
the south end, let them come through.
Yeah.
They do work, I mean, they
Yeah, yeah.
fix some things, so.
Does it include the area coming out of Indiana, Gary?
No, it goes to the Indiana-Illinois state line and stops.
That's what I mean. In other
Yeah.
words, it comes out of Indiana and then comes
Right.
toward Houston.
And that was really part of the thing that drove it, because Indiana had gone in and spent a lot of money cleaning creeks and ditches and so on, and so what happened, the water came, and when it got to Illinois, it low, there was a lot of log jams and beaver dams and so on, so it caused flooding, and that was part of the reason that this thing was entered into this way. Okay, any other comments? If not, roll call vote.
Mike Marin,
Yes.
John Alexander.
Yes.
Rick Knight,
Yes.
Robert Fox.
Yes.
Bruce Stark,
Yes.
Larry Davis.
Yes.
John Greer,
Yes.
Gary Weiner.
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you, motion carries. Item 6 on our agenda is just a discussion for consideration of uniform committee times. We've got some that are at 4:30, some that are 5:30, some that are 5:15, and I'd like to be able to give some direction to the county board about basically saying any committee meeting will meet at 5:15, 5:30, 4:30, whatever. It'll make it, I think, easier. We've had people that have gotten mixed up, and I've done that, on what committee I was on, and did it meet at 4:30 or did it meet at 5:15? So I think that's something that would be beneficial for the committees if we had a uniform meeting time. Haven't had a chance to really talk to Mr. Stark, but with the demise of the nursing home committee and then a new board member being seated in Mr. Mills' vacant spot, I think the committee on committees will be meeting, and we'll be looking at revamping committee assignments and maybe making some changes there, but I want an input from this committee as to what your opinion was as far as standardizing meeting times for all standing committees.
Well, it's always left up to the committee, then,
I know it was.
and I still think it ought to be that way.
Okay,
I don't like the 5:15, but
I'd be in favor of surveying the committee, the board members, just to see if there is a major problem, just in general, with a 4:30 start time for somebody. It could be that John can't make it at 4:30, you can, obviously, you're here.
Well, but I have to adjust in order to do that,
Yeah.
and that's not the most convenient.
we've never had any trouble when you didn't get paid if you didn't attend.
Can we address that, or is that going off subject on I think that, John or he talked earlier that we need to go back to, if you can't make a meeting, then you lose your $50 per diem or whatever.
I don't think you can change that now.
We can't change it?
Well, 10 years, it was set up, $250 a month.
But I think if you don't make the meetings, then you
It
lose
wasn't made that
money.
way.
Pardon?
It wasn't made that way, I don't think.
we're still
But
researching.
I think that would alleviate some of the
Yeah.
problem with people coming to meetings.
I don't think we can change the $250 perhaps, but and maybe not the $50 per meeting, but I think the area that we can change is the back part of that, where it says if you're not here, you don't get paid. I think am I correct on that?
The current rule, in ordinance says that, you get $250 and you get $50 deducted for unexcused absences. We're researching whether or not, we can, just change with how you calculate the excused absence, and say that any absence is unexcused, so that
I
doesn't
can
change
hear
the I'm sorry. We're looking at changing the, we're not gonna change the numbers and the amount of compensation. Right now, the current ordinance says that if you don't attend, with an unexcused absence, you lose $50. We're looking at whether or not, if we say, if you don't attend, whether or not it's excused or not, you lose $50, whether that will be a change in compensation, or just simply a change in calculating the nature of an excused absence. So there might be some leeway there, we're still looking into, but we cannot change the actual numbers.
Well, then you're not changing anything, are you?
Just,
The
method.
definition of an excused absence is what we're trying to determine whether we can change or not.
Who's gonna determine that? Did he say that?
A legal opinion.
Legal opinion?
Yeah, we're gonna look at the statute and see if we believe there's room in that to do that, Bob. If there's not, nothing will change. If there is, we would like to change it from the so that the new ruling would read, if you're not here, you're not paid. I don't
One
know.
way or the other, excused or unexcused?
Excused or unexcused, yeah, there would be no classification as an excused absence.
You still get the $250 a month though?
No, if you're not at the meeting, you would have $50 deducted from it.
That's fine with me, I don't
Okay.
care.
Well, that's what does that answer your question,
Yeah.
Mr. Knight? Okay, well,
Thank you.
that's what we're trying to do, John.
Back to the subject, I'm sensitive to the fact that some of the county board members have obligations and can't be here. I understand what Bob is saying, but there's still some problem in trying to figure out when you have to be here. And it's also a public problem as well, you know, what time do you show up at 4:30, you show up at 5?
Sure.
It would be nice to have a uniform situation. I think it's worthy discussing it further, but I also would encourage that the county board members currently seated be surveyed to
We
see
will do
exactly.
that. I think that's a good idea, and we can do that.
And that way, it's not committee to committee, you're looking at it from the standpoint, does John have a problem, or does Bruce have a problem getting here by 5 o'clock or 4:30, whatever? You know, you've got an understanding as to what kind of hangups you'll have.
Well, you knew that when you went on the committee, or the committee of committees was set up.
Well, but if you change it, Bob, that's the situation. In other words, if you make it a 5 o'clock standard committee meeting time, and you hadn't counted on that because you were counting on 5:15 or 5:30 in order to get here, then I'm just saying, if there's gonna be a change, is there going to be
Let's put
a
everybody's,
difficulty?
put everybody's input into
Yeah.
it and see what they say.
Yeah, I particularly would like to get the opinions of those that have set work hours. You know, I'm close by, it's easy for me, but for those that have to try to get here, I kind of could be challenging. And along with that, 4:30 is, it's okay for me, but it does bring out a question about the public's access to a committee when
Again, though, you
it's
have
hard on them.
office holders that get off at 4:30, and you're gonna make them stick around till 5:15?
Understood.
It's inconvenient for somebody, I'm sure, Bob.
They're getting paid.
Okay, any other opinions? I'm not looking for a recommendation or a motion, I'm just looking for a discussion. I think Mr. Alexander's opinion that we needed survey our proof was good, and we can certainly do that.
Point of order, may I ask a question?
Go ahead, Mr. Hartman.
With your meeting attendance, do you have a requirement that the people attending the meetings that are getting a stipend for attending,
No,
if they leave early?
no. Once roll is taken, they are
Free to
considered
go.
attending the meeting. Yes, sir.
Once roll's taken, they're free to go, and they do
Correct.
not have to stay for any portions of the meeting
That is
afterwards?
correct, sir, under the current rules.
Is that a rule? Do you think we can get changed? Because it seems
It
like
was
it's a disservice.
a year ago, when
It
we
was changed?
reorganized.
We changed it to say that after roll call, you can leave?
No, you had to be, at the end, when you roll call at the end, if you weren't there, you wouldn't get paid.
We went from a per diem to a salaried structure. The per diem required a answered roll call at the end of the meeting in order to be paid. Under the current rules of a salary, there is no requirement for a per diem. So therefore, once roll call is taken at the beginning of the meeting, that member is deemed present at that meeting.
You could ask to be excused, I think, in the previous.
Yeah. So,
Do you think that's a good policy to have?
doesn't make any difference, that's the policy today, Ted, and we don't have an opportunity to change it under statute, that's what we're saying, that's what we're discussing here right now. Doesn't make any difference, that's what we decided to do, so.
Well,
Okay.
we're talking about open access to the public. I think that if the public has public comments, the board members who make decisions for our county should
There are-
stay to listen to those
okay.
public comments.
That's enough public comment now, we've had that portion of our meeting. If you wanna speak to me about it privately, that's fine, I'll be glad to entertain you in my office, but we're not gonna have that discussion now.
Thank you for letting me ask the question.
Mr. Weiner?
No. The public comment session, audience comment session is over. Okay, anything else concerning, the idea of uniform committee meeting times from the committee? Okay. There's some moving on items of information, number 7. We are in touch with Bliss McKnight, that is the county's insurance carrier for both material, property, and liability. And they have agreed to have somebody here at the September 10th board meeting to again reiterate and tell us what legally we can and we can't do in a county without zoning, without land use, and without home rule, in terms of setting rules for how things, developments and so on. So that's, that's an item of information. Mr. Hartke has already brought to your attention the GIS contracts, concerns that he has. I was going to offer that to you as an item of information. He's questioning whether the county had the authority, I think, to execute the contract with Bruce Harris with what he considers to be not due diligence in looking at others. That brings us to the last item, and I think, Rick, you mentioned this, and Mr. Hartke did also, the ordinance and wind ordinance in Iroquois County. And I understand you have some, you might have had some questions about that at one time, whether we should look at that or not look at that, or do you have a?
Well, yeah, the people asked, and I, one that brought up, that we look it over. There again, we don't have zoning, and they do, so I don't know how.
That seems to be the big hang-up. There's not an understanding of what zoning allows you to do and what it doesn't allow you to do. Zoning is nothing more than the taking of private property rights for the benefit of the larger group. And if you agree to do that, and you have zoning in a county or wherever, then everybody's, on record as agreeing to do that. You form a zoning committee or a zoning board, and they hear testimony, and they receive facts, and then they make a decision about, what you can and can't do. Without that authority, it's my understanding that I can't take property rights from you or you because somebody else feels like they're injured. And that's the position we've consistently taken here. We see a lot of information come to us about other wind farm ordinances and lawsuits and so on and so forth, but when you get to digging into it, virtually every place has a zoning ordinance that
And they still
covers
have
that.
problem.
And they still have problems, yeah.
Looks like to me it would be more of a state issue, or representatives or senators.
That certainly is one, in Wisconsin, there's a lawsuit pending now that a county up there has asked the state to go in and make a decision about noise levels and setbacks and so on. I'm not a lawyer, Rick, so I don't know. But that's the point of having somebody from Bliss McKnight come and talk to the county board to reiterate what they believe we can do and what we can't do. And we think we're where we can be right now statutorily. I know that doesn't set well with some of our constituents out here in the county, but that nevertheless is where we believe legally we can go and no further. Any other questions or comments about it? Kim, I told you the audience comment period's over.
Well,
No.
so I can't join the
No,
discussion?
you cannot. If you wanna come see me, if you wanna come see an individual board member, that's fine, but that part of the meeting is passed. I'm not gonna get into a large, open-ended discussion about the position. Everybody knows your position, they've known it for years, and that's fine. I respect that, but we're not gonna have that discussion again.
Can I ask that we be put on the agenda then?
You can do that, but it's not gonna happen tonight.
either for, asked to be put on the agenda for the county board or the executive committee.
There's been a motion to adjourn the meeting. It's been seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mike.
Give that to Scott and put it in.
The way I read this, too, and I'm just asking, I really agree with you. Everything I read, it seems like there's a bunch of zoning. But what I don't understand is, for instance, if they put a turbine in your backyard, and it's not on your property, and it's nothing to do, but it decreases my property value, then whose issue is it?
You live in a county that's not zoned.
Right, yeah, I know.
And I don't,
Well, because I know
it's your problem, I guess is the
Well,
short
I know if I
answer.
put a cattle farm in, or a horse farm in, or a hog farm in, once you hit a certain number of head, it's
You will be permitted under the Illinois Department of Agriculture for that,
Right.
not the county.
Right, I understand that. I'm not arguing, I'm just trying to figure out what I have to do.
I don't have an answer for
Have
you.
you talked to Chad Hayes or?
No, I have not went after that.
In my opinion, that's what I would do. That's my opinion.
The more I look into it, the more I'll
You got a copy?
6 years from now, maybe the 9. Oh, 6 years.
Yeah.
And you're not even more out yet, you know?
They've got outlined out here what their proposed changes are.
That's what.
Talk to
About
Dr.
that.
Fung. Take what?
I'm just trying to get it figured out.
Take care.
Hey, hang on, Ted.